Hello, I hope I'm getting through. Connection seems a little choppy today. So, to connect, it's getting to be more of a chore to connect onto this YouTube. They've changed their interface, and I used to be able to just check right in. Now I've got to log in twice, once for the stream and once for the chat. And the login procedure seems to me unnecessarily cumbersome. Anyways, let's start it. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Last week we talked about the Aganya Sutta, the Sutta of Origins, which is found in the Digha Nikaya. The immediately preceding sutta is the Dhammacakka Sīhanānda Sutta, which deals, amongst other things, with the future rather than the past. It seems an odd order that the sutta dealing with the past comes after the sutta dealing with the future, but that's the ordering in the canon. First thing to be said about this sutta is it's got kind of an odd structure. Usually when in the few places where the Buddha really gets into cosmological kind of themes, it's has a didactic purpose. It's definitely set to make a point, emphasize some point in his teaching. For example, last week's sutta, he was demonstrating the naturalistic origin of the castes to refute the Brahmins' idea that the castes were divinely guided by Brahma, and are thus, unchangeable for all time. In the Suryasata Sutta, where the Buddha talks about the final ending of this world system, it's to clearly to make a point about impermanence. But this sutta is not so obvious. There are a couple of framing stanzas at the beginning and end of the sutta that deal with very briefly and summarily with mindfulness, the four satipatthanas, and then at the ending dealing with the four iddhipadas, the roads to success. But the actual meat of the sutta, dealing with the history of the world, doesn't seem to have really any particular connection to these teachings. So it makes me think it may have been material that was kind of cobbled together by redactors at some point, two completely different sets of teachings put together. Nevertheless, we'll get into the text here. The sutta begins in the where the Aganya Sutta left off. The first section deals with the distant past, after the human race has been devolved to the present state, and they have organized government and a caste system. which was established in the ending of the Aganya Sutta. Here we start with a period of time in which human lifespan is still very, very long. It's in the first phase of the world. There's still some trace of the celestial origin, let's say, of the human race, and that they still have a Dewa-like lifespan of years. And at some point in this early history, there arose a wheel-turning monarch. Now that's a whole topic on itself, the nature of a Cakkavatti, wheel-turning monarch. It's let's say the Buddhist ideal of kingship, a perfect kind of government, and it's also a universal monarchy. That the wheel turner is established by the appearance of a wheel in the sky. And then this wheel has great magical powers. That the king is able to travel with his retinue around the world and conquer all the other rulers without violence. They're just overawed by the sight of the wheel, and they swear fealty to him. There's one, and I won't get into this. May be a topic for a whole talk on itself. The wheel-turning monarch. But there's one point I want to mention for anyone who's reading this in Morris Welsh's translation. There's one of the episodes is when the subject kings swear allegiance to the wheel turner. He has them take the 5 precepts and say, rule according to the precepts, and he adds one at the end, yata bhutancha bhutancha, something like that, which basically a literal translation would be enjoy your food. Maurice Welsh has he translates it as be moderate in eating, and there's some discussion in a footnote about this. It's an obscure phrase and difficult to know what it means. I take it to be a figurative statement that he's telling the subject kings you can continue to enjoy the benefits of your sovereignty. You can continue to be a king subject to the emperor. Enjoy your life. Now, the wheel turner then rules over the whole world for a long period of time, and he is advised by his wise men to keep the duties of a wheel turner, and the duties are listed, and they include providing guardianship over all human beings and also over beasts and birds in the kingdom, and to live righteously, to listen to the holy men, and the final point is to provide well-being and sustenance to the needy, to the poor in your realm. So there follows a succession of father to son, 7 of these wheel-turning monarchs, each of which rules for tens of thousands of years. But the 7th one neglects the duties of the wheel turner, in that he fails to provide sustenance to the poor, and this creates social problems in the realm. Those who have no livelihood, they take to thievery, and one of them is brought before the king accused of being a thief, and the king says, "Why did you steal?" And he says, "Well, I had nothing to eat." So the king gives him some money to establish himself in the trades, and he'd be able to take care of himself. So this policy, although it seems compassionate, had an obvious drawback in that it encouraged others to take up thievery to get money from the king. So when he saw this was becoming a problem, he swung to the opposite extreme, and he said, the next one who comes before me as a thief, I'll have his head cut off. And when he starts this policy, then it creates a different kind of problem. That those who want to take the thievery then to protect themselves, they take up swords and they begin robbing violently and taking up highway robbery and so on. So this causes a degeneration in the morality, and the wheel disappears. He loses the authority of a wheel-turning monarch. So this begins a process of decline in the human race, and this is a theme that goes on in this. We saw it also in the Aganya Sutta, the idea of devolution from a higher state to a lower state, and this continues with these early humans. They become more and more immoral over time, and the result of this is a diminution in their lifespan. And this goes through stages. It's kind of interesting to see the actual stages. They begin with a lifespan of 80,000 years, but when they turn to violence, as is explained in this origin story, the lifespan declines to 40,000 years. Then they start lying about their save themselves from the justice of the king. They start lying about their deeds, and by span declines again to 20,000 years. And each one of these represents one generation. So the people who live for 40,000 years, their children only live for 20,000 years because they took up lying, and then their children only live 10,000 years because they took up slander. And then the next generation, their sexual morality begins to decline, and they start committing adultery, and they only live for 5,000 years. Then the next generation, they take up harsh speech and idle chatter, and so they only live between 200 and 250 years. Then the next generation succumb to greed and hatred years. And then, sorry, I'm reading the numbers wrong. The previous generation should have been 2,500 years. And then this generation, 1,000 years. And then the next generation succumbs to wrong views, and they only live for 200 or for 500 years. And then the next generation is the one that goes to 200, between 200 and 250. And the Pali here is kind of obscure. It said that they fall into a dharma raga, visamaloba, and michadama. And it's not explained in the text exactly what these are, but in the commentary it does come up with explanations for these. Dhamma raga means unrighteous desire, and is taken by the commentary to mean incest. Visamaloba is immoderate greed, and is defined by the commentary as being excessive desire for material belongings. And michadama is a very vague phrase, which literally translates to something like wrong ways or acting badly. The commentary says it refers to homosexuality. Men desire men and women desire women. That's kind of an interesting point, that homosexuality is not mentioned anywhere in the suttas, and it rarely comes up even in the commentaries. This is a very rare of the concept. So the lifespans continue to to decline, and at the Buddhist time, the lifespan was taken to be 100 years, and it continues to decline. There's a tradition in this is not from the text as far as I can see, but there's a tradition in Burma at least, that lifespan declines every generation now by 1 year. And it will continue to decline in the future as people become more and more immoral. And the bottom, the very nadir of human devolution coming in the future will be when human beings are reduced to basically an animal-like existence. They have a lifespan of 10 years. They reach sexual maturity at 5 years. They have no sense of morality whatsoever. They live like beasts. And at the very worst moment, there's 10 days. And at the very worst moment, there's 10 days of what are called sword time, when they all go in, all the humans who exist at that time go into a madness of violence and killing, and they slaughter almost the entire human race. They just kill each other madly. A few survivors survive by hiding in the forest, and at the end of the 10 days period of madness, they gradually come out, and they meet each other, and they say, "Oh, I'm glad you survived too. This came about because we were so immoral. Let's at least take up the morality of non-killing." So they take up the morality of non-killing, and this increases their lifespan. And the stages are not laid out explicitly as they will for the decline, but there's a rise in lifespans as human beings gain more and more morality over time until they get back up to 80,000 years, and then the decline starts again. It isn't clear from the suttas, but it's found in some later texts, and it's found in the Sarvastivadin texts, that this cycle repeats in the world system 18 times. Each one of these is called an Antara Kappa, or an intermediate Kappa. And the whole 18 is called a Maha Kappa. And then the world comes to destruction at the end of the 18 cycles. It also, a detail from the commentary that's of some interest is that the ending is not always a sword time. There's 3 different kinds of ending. It's always something very miserable at the end. They either die by violence, or as in this case, or they die by disease, plague wipes them out, or they die by hunger, famine wipes them out. Returning to the text of the Sutta, which only deals with this one cycle, at the end of the uprising of the return to a Dewa-like state of 80,000 years, that's when a Maitreya Buddha will arise, the coming Buddha. At the same time, as Maitreya Buddha, there will be a wheel-turning monarch ruling over the world named Sankha. And this is said to be a very fortunate time to be born. It's a kind of golden age. It says that the beings at this time are free from disease. The only diseases known to them are greed, old age. These are the 3, and they have lifespan of 80,000 years, so that the aging doesn't come as soon as it does for us. It's also said the population will be very high at that time, and that Jambudipa, which is the island, it's southern island, the island which human beings live on in this world, and also in some contexts it means India. I think in the earliest time that it was synonymous. They only knew of India. And Jambudipa will have 84,000 cities, and people will be so tightly packed there that the eaves of one house will brush against the eaves of the next house. So that, that doesn't sound too appealing to us, but there it is. So that's really as far as this sutta takes us to the time of Maitreya Buddha. But as I said, this cycle is supposed to repeat 18 times. And in this world system, this Mahakappa, there will be altogether 5 Buddhas. And each one arises in a separate Mahakappa or Antarakappa. So there's a great span of time between Buddhas. And the final ending of the world is at some point, and it's not specified how long after, if there's any more ups and downs after Maitreya Buddha, but after all these 18 ups and downs are over, then the world is destroyed by the multiplication of the sun. The sun becomes, it keeps new suns appear in the sky till there's 7 suns, and it burns the entire earth up, and that's the ending of the destruction of all life and all physical structure in the world. And it's the end of the Mahakappa. So one thing we can take from this sutta, we can take some comfort in. If you want to interpret this sutta at all literally, then the end of the world is a long ways off, at least tens and tens of thousands of years away. So we're not in the end times. Although we are said to be in the decline period, and if the Burmese are right about lifespans going down, 1 year or 1 year a century, I think it is, then 25 centuries from the Buddha's time, so the lifespan now would be 75, which is about right. We would have another what 750 years before the ending of the although we can see that the world right now actually seems quite mad. We're pretty close to a kind of a general unraveling of things. So that's the sutta, and the moral of the sutta in this sutta and also in the Aganya Sutta is the importance of keeping morality for human health and well-being and longevity, and also for a stable, harmonious society. So both these suttas have this underlying theme that the longevity of beings and their well-being depends upon the general morality of the people living at that time. So I'll stop there and see if there's anything you want to ask questions in the chat. Go ahead, please. I'm not seeing anything coming in. I hope it's working. Here, if I'm even getting through. Okay, there's something that's coming. Okay. The SOAR time doesn't sound too far away right now. Men and women don't talk to each other anymore. People all over the world are becoming increasingly isolated. Yes. Yeah. I think we're. I think that the general idea that human morality is declining is seems to be generally affirmed, and even on the kind of international level, there are several wars going on right now, and it seems to be a general international anarchy happening. So, Julie, you were here at our river 15 years ago. That would be what, 2010, something like that. Maybe what we need in the world today is another wheel-turning monarch. Do you yourself understand this prediction as a more or less general rule about social well-being related to morality? Yeah, I think that stands to reason that if people are generally moral, society will be harmonious. And if everyone kept the 5 precepts, for example, you wouldn't need much in the way of a state. Everyone would just live decently. Do you see humankind colonizing Mars and beyond? I don't know. That's something I don't know. I don't really see much value in colonizing Mars. It's a completely inhospitable planet. If people were to live on Mars, they would have to be in either underground or in sort of domed cities. It doesn't seem a very pleasant place to dwell. I could see it. Stations with the semi-permanent staff like we have in Antarctica. I could see that happening. What about situations like the plague where millions of people died? Do these types of events have an explanation? Yeah, there are, for any events that large or small that occur, there are multiple causes. This is one of the important principles from Abhidhamma, that nothing arises without a cause and nothing arises from a single cause. One of the causes, but not the only cause, is karma, the karma we make. So when there's something like the Black Death, this mass plague, I mean the natural cause was the poor hygiene at the time and the spread of rats that had the plague flea. But the people who died from it must have had a karmic seed to experience an excruciating death. The tsunami all happened while I was at our river. Yeah, at the time I was asked about that often, about the tsunami, and it may be a more clear example that the actual tsunami that occurred, had nothing to do with human comic or otherwise. It was the purely geological, natural movement of the Earth's crust caused the tsunami, but anyone who died in the tsunami must have had a karmic seed to die by drowning. And when you have a karmic seed like that, it may be you may go through many, many lifetimes and never encounter a situation where you die by drowning, but that seed remains there. And then when the external factors become present, it allows that seed to manifest, and then the being experiences that karma. There are always, when there's something like that tsunami, there are always some individuals who escape seemingly miraculously. Somebody will say, well, I don't know why, but I really just, that day I just felt like traveling up country to go to the market. And I'm so glad I did, because he did not have the karmic seed to die by drowning. Do we know when in the Buddhist ministry span were Ganya and Cakkavatti expounded upon, and who the intended audience were? We do have, well, we don't know when in the Buddhist ministry, this is hard to date them, but we do have some idea for the Aganya Sutta, because of the framing story. He was speaking to some Brahmins. So the intention was to set forth a kind of naturalistic explanation for human development and the establishment of human society and the caste systems. The Cakkavatti Sutta, as I said, the framing story is very odd and seems to be disconnected from the material, so we don't really know who it was intended for. How do you purify the negative seeds of karma? It's by continually making good karma. You don't. The only time the only way that a karma is actually eliminated is either when it comes to fruition and you experience the results, or you attain to one of the stages of enlightenment, and that these purify the karmic seeds. But otherwise, if you can sort of diminish the effects and swamp the negative seeds with positive seeds, but continue to make a good karma. Bhante, could technological singularity ascend humanity to higher intelligence so that enlightenment becomes widespread? I don't believe that at all. I don't think there's any technological shortcut. I think that's kind of a trap to follow that line of thinking. It's just fall into a materialistic thinking that enlightenment cannot be attained by any kind of technological means. Do you think Buddhist ethics in AI is worth pursuing academically? Do you see any value in creating a Buddhist AI system? I don't know about that. I'm not sure how you would imbue an ethical system into AI. AI is basically just a fancy search engine and database. I think it's, my own opinion, I think it's been really overhyped. It's not like we've created something that thinks artificially. So that if you try to imbue ethics into it, it only means you are kind of serving the algorithm to come up with answers according to a certain ethical line. Can Maitreya come any sooner? No. This is outside the context of this sutta, there's discussion about the different Buddhas, and in between Buddhas, there's always has to be a dark age when the teachings of the previous Buddha are forgotten entirely. So at the present time, we still have the teachings of Gautama Buddha in the world. So Maitreya Buddha won't come until those teachings are completely forgotten. This is part of the point of a Sammasambuddha, a Buddha enlightened by himself, because he doesn't have any previous teachings to rely on. Does this imply some kind of social distribution is required for just society to keep the bottom out of the worst of poverty, at least? Yeah, I think that does, yeah, there is some implication of that. There's also the sutta where, trying to remember the name of it, Kuttadanta Sutta, where it's a kind of a morality story of Buddha remembering one of his past lives, where he was the wise counselor to a foolish king, and there was in the kingdom, there was in one province there was some rising problem of banditry and violence, and the king wanted to send the army in and hang the few of the worst troublemakers and whip the rest of them, and knock their heads together and force everybody into line. And the counselor said that would only work in the short term. It's better to investigate the problem and correct it. And it seems like the people in that province don't have a good livelihood. So what we should do is, those who wish to take up farming, we should grant them land. Those who want to work, we should give them paid work in the royal service. And those who would like to live by trade, we give them a loan to get them started in a business. So it's kind of a socialistic kind of a line there. But I also think that you don't want to push that redistribution idea too far. I don't find anywhere in the Buddhist teaching an idea that everyone should be reduced to the same social level. There's an acceptance of hierarchy and differences. Would you say merit and karma are two sides to a common coin? Weighing the merit side minimizes the power of karma when dependent origination takes place. I'm not really sure what you're getting at there. Merit and karma are related, because you make merit, you get good karma. I don't really follow your question exactly. It's curious how it doesn't even occur to modern science that morality might have a bigger influence and stronger impact on lifespan. Now, well, science up to present, although I see signs that it's really changing, but science up to present has been really stuck in a purely materialist paradigm. And as long as we're in a materialist paradigm, there's no way of explaining the impact of morality. So I think that's we'll call it for today. Thank you for tuning in. I hope it was informative, and we'll see you again next week. I haven't got an idea for a topic yet. We'll see what comes up. Okay.